"Ma'am, I said move along. You can't just stand here loitering." The officer's voice cracked through the warm afternoon like a whip. His navy blue uniform looked even darker against the pale brick wall where Maya had stepped aside, clutching her handbag close. She'd been scrolling through an email on her phone waiting for a ride when the patrol car pulled up with a sharp squeal of brakes. Now, one officer stood inches from her face, one hand already resting on the can of pepper spray at his belt, the other pointing at her like an accusation. "I'm not loitering," Maya said, keeping her voice as calm as she could. "I'm just waiting for my—" "Did I ask for your explanation?" he snapped, lips curling into a smirk. "I gave you a lawful order. You people always think the rules don't apply to you." Her heart stuttered at the words "you people," but she held her ground. Cars rolled by lazily in the lot, music drifting from open windows. A few shoppers slowed near the entrance of the big box store, sensing tension the way birds feel a coming storm. "Officer, I haven't done anything wrong," she tried again. "I'm on a public sidewalk." Behind him, a second officer leaned against the hood of the cruiser, arms folded, eyes cool and bored. His blonde hair was slicked back neatly, his badge catching the sunlight. He watched her like she was some mildly interesting show on television. The first officer took a step closer, invading her space. "You got ID on you?" he demanded. "Or are you just passing through like the others?" Maya swallowed. Her first instinct was compliance, years of knowing exactly how badly these encounters could go. Slowly, so he could see, she reached into her purse. "Hands where I can see them!" he barked suddenly, making her flinch. "Are you deaf? I said keep your hands up." She froze, palms rising automatically, her handbag dangling from one wrist. Heat rushed to her face as a couple standing near a parked SUV turned to stare. Somebody pulled out a phone. "You just told me to get my ID," she said, each word measured. "I'm trying to cooperate." He gave a short, mocking laugh. "Oh, you're cooperating now, that's cute." He tilted his head toward his partner. "Hear that, Jameson? She's cooperating." The second officer, a taller man with pale eyes, pushed off the car and sauntered over. "Yeah," he said lazily. "Doesn't look like it. Looks like she's wasting our time." Maya's back brushed the wall. She hadn't realized she'd been inching away from them until she had nowhere else to go. The bricks were hot through her blouse. She could feel her pulse trembling in her throat. "I've been standing here for 10 minutes, she said. "I came out of that store." She nodded toward the glass doors. "My receipt is in my bag. I'm just waiting for my driver." Jameson lifted an eyebrow. "Driver, huh? Must be nice." His eyes flicked over her, from her natural curls pinned back from her face, down to her tailored trousers and heels. "Funny how everyone turns into a lawyer or a senator's niece as soon as we ask questions." A small laugh rippled from somewhere behind them, one of the bystanders watching. Maya's stomach twisted. She could feel her dignity being chipped away, piece by piece, with every word they threw at her. "Look," she said, voice tightening. "If you'll just let me reach into my bag, I'll show you my ID and my receipt. You'll see there's no problem." The first officer, his name tag read Harrison, leaned in so close she could smell coffee on his breath. "The only problem I see is you refusing to follow instructions," he said. "You're loitering. Store called about you. Said you were hanging around outside, making customers uncomfortable." Maya blinked. "Making customers uncomfortable? I walked out, checked my phone, and stood here. That's it. Are you calling me a liar?" Harrison's smile sharpened. "Because that's not very smart." Behind him, several people now had their phones out, cameras raised. A woman in a red suit frowned, whispering to the man beside her as she recorded. Another man lifted his phone higher, angling for a better shot. Maya realized what they were seeing. A petite black woman pressed against a wall, flanked by two armed officers in dark uniforms, one of them hovering with a hand on his pepper spray. Her chest tightened. She thought of the headlines she'd spent years reading, the cases she'd taken on, the families she'd sat with in quiet conference rooms while they cried. She took a slow breath. "Officer," she said carefully, "I know my rights. I'm not resisting. I'm answering your questions. There's no need for this to escalate." Harrison's jaw tightened. "Escalate? Ma'am, you haven't even seen escalation." He glanced at Jameson. "She wants to talk about rights. That's adorable." Jameson chuckled, folding his arms again. "Maybe if you didn't act so nervous, people wouldn't think you were up to something. Just saying." "I'm nervous because I'm being cornered and yelled at," Maya replied, the edges of her composure fraying. "Wouldn't you be?" Harrison straightened, then deliberately shifted his stance so his body blocked her from the cameras behind him. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, voice dropping into a cold, practiced tone. "You're going to stop talking. You're going to put your hands flat on that wall. If you move without permission, I will consider you a threat. Do you understand?" Maya's breath hitched. She glanced past him at the people filming, seeking some anchor in the sea of faces. A young man met her eyes, his expression tight with worry. He mouthed something she couldn't fully catch, "I'm recording," and gave a quick nod. She swallowed and turned back to the officer. Her palms slid up against the rough brick. "You're humiliating me," she said quietly. "Good," Harrison muttered. "Maybe you'll remember next time to keep moving when an officer tells you to." He kicked her feet apart with his boot, harder than necessary. Pain shot through her ankle. She bit back a gasp. Jameson watched, stroking his chin. "You sure you want to do this here?" he asked. "Lot of cameras out." Harrison shrugged, not looking back. "Let them film. She wants attention so badly, we'll give her a show." He ran his hands roughly down her arms, then along her sides, not bothering to hide the contempt in his touch. "No weapons," he said dismissively. "Of course. Just an attitude." Maya felt anger heat her cheeks. "There was no reason to put your hands on me," she said. "I told you I had ID." "Yeah, and I told you to keep quiet," he snapped. He stepped back a little, hand returning to the pepper spray. "Last chance. You got warrants I should know about? Anything else you're hiding?" Her patience snapped, but she kept her voice low. "I'm hiding the fact that I'm trying not to panic while two armed officers harass me for standing on a sidewalk." A murmur rose from the small crowd. Someone called out, "She's literally just standing there, man." Another voice added, "This is harassment. She didn't do anything." Harrison's eyes flicked toward the voices, annoyance flashing across his face. "Everyone back up," he barked. "This is a police matter. Step away or you'll be obstructing an investigation." "Investigation of what?" Maya asked sharply. "My presence?" He snapped his gaze back to her. For a second, their eyes locked, hers blazing, his cold and unreadable behind dark sunglasses. Then, with a small, almost theatrical motion, he drew the pepper spray from his belt. The world narrowed to that small orange canister. "Officer, that's not necessary," Maya said, her voice tight with disbelief. "I'm not resisting. I'm not a threat. I've complied with everything you asked." "You raised your voice," he replied, as if that settled it. "People like you get loud. Things go sideways. I'm controlling the situation." The canister clicked as his thumb moved over the safety. Maya's body pressed instinctively closer to the wall, her hands curling against the bricks. "Please don't," she whispered. "There are people watching. There's no reason." "Face forward," he ordered. "Close your eyes." Her heart hammered in her ears. She could feel her carefully constructed life, the one built on degrees and late nights and courtroom victories, boiling down to this moment. A sidewalk, a wall, an officer with a can of spray and a point to prove. "Stop!" a woman's voice called sharply from behind them. It cut through the noise with surprising authority. "Officer, you are way out of line. She hasn't done anything." Harrison hesitated, annoyance flickering over his features. "Ma'am, "Step back," he said without turning. "This doesn't concern you." "It does when you abuse your power," the woman shot back. "I'm recording everything. So is he and him and everyone else." Maya could almost feel his frustration thickening the air. His pride had been challenged now, not just by her, but by witnesses. The worst possible combination. He leaned closer, the nozzle inches from her cheek. "You think these people are going to save you?" he murmured. "You think a video is going to change what happens out here?" Her eyes burned, not from spray, but from the humiliation, the rage, the bitter familiarity of it all. "No," she said softly, "but it might change what happens after." He snorted. "You talk like you're somebody important." Behind him, Jameson shifted uncomfortably. "Harrison, maybe we should just run her ID and be done," he muttered. "This is getting—" "Quiet," Harrison snapped. "I've got this." For a heartbeat, Maya considered staying silent, letting the moment pass, letting the humiliation settle like dust that would eventually wash away. But the years of training, of fighting for people who never got the benefit of the doubt, rose up inside her like a tide. She turned her head just enough to meet his eyes, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "You have no idea who you're talking to," she said. Harrison's grip tightened on the canister. He scoffed, mistaking her calm for empty bravado. "Lady," he said, smirk returning, "out here, you're just another loiterer until I say otherwise." He didn't know, none of them knew, that by the time the sun set on that parking lot, every assumption he'd made about the black woman loitering outside the store would come crashing down around him. But for now, all Maya had was a wall at her back, the sting of his words, and the unshakable certainty that this moment would not end the way he thought it would. Harrison's finger tightened around the trigger of the pepper spray. Maya could hear her own breathing, short and sharp, as if it belonged to someone else. The wall at her back felt like stone in winter, even though the sun was hot on her shoulders. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to run, to fight, to do something. But years of experience in courtrooms and community halls whispered a different command. Wait. Watch. Remember everything. "Officer!" The same woman who had spoken up before stepped closer from the crowd. She was in a bright red pantsuit, phone held high and steady. Her voice carried over the parking lot, firm and clear. "You're being recorded from 5 different angles," she said. "If you spray her while she's complying, that's assault. We all see it." "Back up, ma'am," Harrison snapped without looking at her. "Last warning." The woman in red didn't move. A murmur rippled through the bystanders as more people raised their phones, emboldened. Maya could feel dozens of eyes on her, the weight of silent witnesses. "You're escalating a non-violent situation," the woman insisted. "She hasn't threatened you. She hasn't resisted. You will have to justify this." Harrison's jaw flexed. For the first time, Maya saw uncertainty flicker under his practiced smugness. Not enough to stop him outright, but enough to slow him down. Jameson shifted his weight beside him. "Harrison," he said under his breath, "maybe we just run her ID. Get this over with." Harrison lowered the spray a fraction. His pride fought with his instincts, wrestling behind his sunglasses. "Fine," he muttered at last. "Since everyone wants to play lawyer today." He stepped in, close enough that Maya could see the faint shadow of stubble on his cheek. "Take out your ID," he ordered. "Slowly. Don't try anything." With deliberate care, her hands trembling only slightly, Maya reached into her bag. She pulled out a slim leather wallet and flipped it open. The first thing visible wasn't her driver's license. It was the gold seal of the State Civil Rights Commission and the words in clear black print, Maya E. Carter, Special Counsel. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Harrison's smirk froze, then faltered as the meaning sank in. "What is this?" he scoffed, but the false confidence had cracks now. Maya's voice, when she finally spoke, was calm and steady. It was the voice she used when addressing judges, police unions, and city councils who didn't want to hear what she had to say. "That," she replied, "is my official identification. I'm Special Counsel for the State Civil Rights Commission. I supervise investigations into law enforcement misconduct and discriminatory policing practices, including," she lifted her eyes to his, "abuse of power against civilians who are doing absolutely nothing wrong." A stunned hush fell over the crowd. Someone swore softly. The woman in red let out a low whistle. Jameson's arms slowly dropped from their folded position. "You're kidding," he said, but he didn't sound like he expected her to agree. Maya kept going, not giving Harrison time to regain control. "I was on my way to a meeting with your chief," she said, the word landing like a stone, "to discuss the department's rising number of civilian complaints. My car service hit traffic. I texted to say I'd be a few minutes late and decided to wait outside after I finished shopping." She turned her head slightly, gesturing toward the store. "You decided that a black woman standing alone on a sidewalk must be a threat. You accused me of loitering, ignored my explanations, put your hands on me without cause, and threatened to pepper spray me while I was complying with your orders, all in front of multiple witnesses and cameras." Her gaze swept over the bystanders. Phones glinted in the sunlight like tiny mirrors. "Congratulations, Officer Harrison," she finished softly. "You just turned my case study into a live demonstration." The color drained visibly from his face. Behind them, one of the onlookers couldn't help it. They let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Man, you really messed up," someone muttered. "Ma'am," Harrison started, trying to recover. "You didn't identify yourself as—" "I didn't need to identify myself," Maya cut in. "I'm a citizen. That should have been enough." Jameson cleared his throat. "Look," he said hurriedly, glancing between them. "Maybe we got off on the wrong foot. We had a call from the store about a suspicious person hanging around." "Did the caller say suspicious or black?" Maya asked calmly. "Because from the moment you stepped out of that car, the only suspicious behavior I saw was yours." The woman in red stepped closer, seizing the opening. "I have the whole thing," she said, waving her phone. "From the first order to move along to the threat with the spray. You want me to email it to Internal Affairs? Or straight to the news?" Harrison's mouth opened and closed. This time, no words came out. The distant wail of a siren grew louder, cutting through the thick silence. A second patrol car slid into the lot, followed by an unmarked black sedan. Doors opened. A tall, middle-aged man in a plain suit stepped out, flanked by another pair of officers. Chief Daniels. Maya recognized him immediately. He recognized her a second later, and his face went through a rapid sequence of surprise, horror, and something like dread. "Ms. Carter," he called, striding forward. "I'm so sorry I'm late. There was a pile-up on—" He stopped as he took in the scene. Maya against the wall, Harrison still holding the half-lowered spray, Jameson hovering, the crowd of witnesses, phones raised like a jury of 1,200. His gaze snapped back to Harrison. "Officer Harrison, what exactly is going on here?" Harrison straightened reflexively. "Chief, the store reported—" "I don't want the script," Daniels interrupted sharply. "I want the truth, and I want it now." Maya stepped away from the wall, rolling her shoulders back. Her muscles ached where Harrison had kicked her feet apart, but her posture was steady. "I'll be happy to provide a statement," she said. "But since so many civilians saw everything, perhaps we should start by ensuring their videos are preserved." Daniels's eyes darted to the crowd. "Everyone who recorded this interaction," he said loudly, "please don't delete your footage. An internal investigation will be opened immediately. If you're willing to share your video, an officer will take your contact information." A murmur of surprise swept through the onlookers. More than a few nodded in approval. Harrison looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him. "Sir, with respect," he began. She refused to comply at first. "Is that true?" Daniels asked Maya. "I answered every question," she replied. "Repeatedly. I asked to show my ID. I was ordered to keep my hands up. I was frisked against that wall in front of strangers because I was making customers uncomfortable by existing." She met Daniels' eyes evenly. "This is exactly the pattern my office has been tracking in your use of force data, Chief. The only difference today is that the target happens to have a state badge." A muscle worked in his jaw. Daniels turned back to his officers, voice cool and controlled. "Holster the spray and step back, Harrison," he said. "You too, Jameson." Jameson complied instantly. Harrison hesitated a second longer, then slid the canister back into place with stiff, jerky movements. "Effective immediately," Daniels continued, "both of you are placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Turn over your body cams and remain available for questioning." Harrison's eyes widened. "Chief, come on." "That's an order," Daniels snapped. "And if you have any sense at all, you won't say another word without representation present." For the first time since the encounter began, Maya felt the knot in her chest loosen slightly. She drew a slow breath, steadying herself. The woman in red came to stand beside her. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "I will be," Maya answered. "Thank you for speaking up." The woman shrugged, still a little shaken. "You shouldn't have needed me to." "No," Maya agreed. "I shouldn't have." Daniels stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Ms. Carter, again, I'm deeply sorry. This isn't how we wanted your visit to go." "On the contrary," Maya said, surprising him. "This is exactly why I came. Data alone can be argued with. Stories like this, especially when they're on video, are harder to ignore." She looked over at Harrison, now standing off to the side with his shoulders rigid, eyes fixed on the ground. "I don't want a carefully scripted apology," she said. "I want change. I want your officers retrained. I want that caller educated about what suspicious actually means. And I want every person out here to see that their voices matter when they witness injustice." Daniels nodded slowly. "You'll have my full cooperation," he said. "Whatever your office needs." Maya glanced around at the faces in the crowd. Fear and anger still lingered there, but something else had joined them now. Something like resolve. A young man raised his phone slightly. "Ms. Carter," he called, "can we share this? People need to see what happened." She thought of the countless cases where there wasn't footage, where families sat across from her with nothing but their word against a report written in careful, defensive language. She thought of the training she'd be leading next week, the rooms of officers who would insist they'd never do what Harrison had done. "Share it," she said. "But don't stop there. File complaints. Show up at meetings. Vote for leaders who take this seriously. And when you see someone being treated like I was, don't just record. Speak up. Sometimes one voice is enough to change the outcome." The woman in red smiled faintly. "Glad I yelled then." "So am I," Maya replied. An officer came over to take down her contact information, but Maya handed him a card instead. "I'll be in the station all afternoon," she told Daniels. "We can start our meeting after I write my statement." "You still want to meet?" he asked, incredulous. She gave a small, wry smile. "If anything, I have more to say now." As the crowd slowly dispersed, some heading back to their cars, others clustering to compare videos, Maya walked toward the station with Daniels at her side. The sun was still high, the parking lot noisy and ordinary again, but something fundamental had shifted. Harrison had seen a loiterer to be controlled, intimidated, and silenced. What he got instead was a civil rights lawyer with a badge, a crowd that refused to look away, and a department that could no longer pretend the problem was somewhere else. He'd been right about one thing, Maya thought, as the station doors slid open in front of her. He really had given them a show. Only now, the whole city was going to see it. And this time, she would make sure the ending belonged to justice, not fear. If this story touched you, like and subscribe. Comment what you believe the next step should be: justice, accountability, or something more.